All right, real excited to have my next guest on the Sports Card Nation podcast. She has her own show. She's a proud graduate of the University of South Carolina. She's doing big things and very quickly, and happy she's made some time for us on the show. She's the host of Women of the Hobby, none other than Sam Shuford. Welcome to the show.
Yeah. Thank you, John. I really appreciate you taking the time to have us on here and, just talk about the hobby. So I'm excited.
Yeah, well, again, thank you for coming on, and we're going to get into a lot of different things, but with your show, I think it's important. As someone like me who's old and been in the hobby a long time, let's just put it that way, and the old man on the porch, we are seeing more women in the hobby, and I think that's very important. I think it's huge. I know we talked a little bit before we kind of went live. Some of my perspective. I think we spend a little too much time. If I was in a different hobby, let's say where it was female dominated and it was something I enjoyed, I'd want to be known more just as someone who enjoys that hobby or that sport or whatever the niche is, and I think that's important too. But we are seeing more, and I think it's important to the hobby, to the long term success of the hobby. But I getting into kind of your background, I know Sports Illustrated for Kids cards sort of got you in early as a younger lady, and then I know you kind of went away and then came back recently. And we've seen what some of these Sports Illustrated for Kids cards now go here on the secondary market. I mean, does that surprise you at all? No one kind of, I mean, I remember even, seeing them. I was older when I saw them, but they were just kind of those perforated cards in the magazine, and now some of them are fetching four figures or more. I mean, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I definitely, the Sports Illustrated for Kids cards were definitely how I guess I had my first entrance into the hobby and collecting different cards and things like that. But it is amazing to see what some of these cards are going for. And I think something that's kind of unique about the Sports Illustrated cards specifically is I think it's more so for those sports that aren't necessarily like mainstream. Like I know there's like a Tony Hawk, like SI for Kids. There's a Tiger Woods. There's like Serena Williams, and there's just like a lot of different SI for Kids cards. So I think it's kind of nice to introduce, other sports as well, which I kind of like about it. But yeah, they're going for a lot, which is insane because, I mean, I think they're going for some of the higher graded ones, obviously a premium because it's so hard to tear out. Like, and I feel like when people were kids, they're just tearing them out. They're not caring about, condition or whatnot. So yeah, it's crazy what those values are really fetching right now.
Man, it's funny. You think that the magazine itself probably cost 250, 350 at the time, if my memory serves me correctly. And if you were one of the fortunate ones to like you said, extricate that card out of the magazine in good fashion, you still have the card in that condition, you're probably doing all right and pleasantly surprised many years later what those cards have brought. And many of them, the cool thing about them is many of them, it's really, in a sense, they're true rookie cards. It's the first time they've appeared on a card in any fashion. And so for those people, and as you very well know, where we have 70 different releases of just Bowman, right? And so which one is the old debate, which one is the one to get, or which one is it's sort of like vintage, where there really was only one true sort of rookie card. Sports Illustrated, the kids cards sort of fit that mold, that fit that description, and I think that's actually some of the reason we're seeing some of the values we are on those particular releases.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I don't really know if I had thought about it like that before, but it is true. Like I think for a lot of like the year that I have, I believe is 2007, 2008. So it's Steph Curry, and it probably is one of his first cards out there, and he's still in his Davidson uniform, so like he's not wearing a pro jersey or anything. So yeah, it kind of highlights these athletes really before they become true professionals. Like, right, I feel like they highlight a lot of people who maybe you never hear about again, but then some of them obviously become really big names.
Yep, yep, and it's great. And, it's also great. You go in Salvation Army thrift store hop, and you never know where you might find an old Sports Illustrated for kids and which one you might run into. So I think we're going to see, even years from now, Sam, people, look what I just found here, or look where I found in my uncle's attic, or in my old garage. I forgot all about these type of deal. I think we'll see them kind of pop up years later with some of those bigger, more expensive cards that we kind of talked about. So I just came from Dallas a few weeks ago, the Dallas show, that first time in Texas for me. And, as I've said, and people who listen to the show know, I've been on both sides of the table as a dealer still and as a consumer. Obviously, I went to the Dallas show as a consumer and was there for three and a half days. And I walked the floor, and I was happy to see there was a lot of female dealers. I saw a good handful of female dealers, and then even those consumers on the other side of the table on the floor. More than, I'm the old cadre. I've been in this a long time, more than I've ever seen before. We have the National obviously coming up. I expect to see even more with a show of that magnitude. I think it's great. While I may be talking about it now to you because of your show, I don't look at someone of a female persuasion and say, oh, I see him as a hobbyist, but you do. And when you start to see them become more prevalent in the hobby, I think it's important to note. And, we see people in positions of hobby power positions with, Sue's at tops, then Emily Kless. I know I'm probably forgetting some other people at Panini that hold very important positions and upper deck and tops other than Emily. It's important, to recognize that, they're a very important part of the hobby. I think your show does a great job at highlighting not just you've had Sue's on your show, and you've had collectors on the show, and it's one thing that's great. I try to do the same thing. Is wherever walk of life you're from, we're all part of the hobby. The hobby is the people, is the tagline of this show. And even with your show, you've had male guests on, and so you're not just saying, hey, this show's just for women and you're excluded. While we're going to highlight that, and that's kind of the focal point, the hobby is everyone too. And kudos to you for doing that. We've seen issues where maybe not with the hobby, but maybe like a golf club that says, hey, we're all just men, or or college. It's nice to see, while the focal point is women in the hobby, we'll also have a male person in the hobby just as well, and the hobby is for all of us. And I think you do a great job of that. So my hat's off to you.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that. And I think that is kind of the main idea. It's not to separate us and, put us on a pedestal or anything like that. It's really to just shine the light in a bigger room of everyone. So yeah, I agree. It's for everyone. And yeah, I hope to continue to have male and female. I try and make it is like, I know that the naming is like, oh, maybe that's only for women, but no, like I want men to be involved as well. It's for everyone, as is kind of your tagline as well. So yeah, I really appreciate that. And I'm glad that it's working out pretty well. That's the one thing I really didn't want to make it like, exclusive or just like anything like that. I wanted it to be just bringing awareness and just like bringing us in together. So that makes me feel good that hopefully it's coming across well.
Oh, no doubt. I don't think if anyone's not seeing that, then I'll say it. They're not looking hard enough, or they're just not watching. Period. So, and shame on them. So, but you've come back in the hobby. You've got the content creation with the Women Hobby Show. I got to ask you, from being in it before as a younger person, and now being older and a graduate of college, what do you think, if I asked you, I'll put you a little bit on the hot seat here, Sam, the biggest roadblock for, let's say, a woman to partake in the hobby? What do you think is like the biggest obstacle? Like if a fellow woman said to you, "Hey, Sam, I'm thinking about, I kind of like cards, I have an interest," and you probably get these questions. I'm looking to get in the hobby, but what are the pitfalls? What's your advice? Like, what's the biggest obstacle that you would tell them? Like, hey, just be wary of this, or this is something that we haven't done a better job with yet.
Yeah. So I think kind of to get the younger generation in, I think one of the biggest things is, I hear everyone kind of tell their hobby story and they're like, oh, I got in when I was younger. I kind of took a break and then I found cards and I fell back in love again. But I feel like to try and get the younger like women within like starting earlier, they kind of need to start when they're younger to have that same type of story, so to speak, or period of time where they're very interested in cards. So like a lot of people, I think the hobby starts with like the younger generation getting in and then like finding that love, and then life does happen and you may fall out of it, but then you may see it come up again down the road. So I think that's like one thing. But then in terms of someone who maybe they're trying to get in right now, what are some roadblocks that they might encounter? um, I think for me one of the biggest things was maybe as a female, I didn't always feel comfortable enough to engage or like put myself out there the most. Just because I mean it is mainly males, and so it's just kind of like I don't know like how they'll really respond. You just never know in situations where you feel like you're kind of the odd one out. So I think it's kind of just like having the courage to just go out there and really kind of engage with other people in the community. I think that's going to be the best way that you feel welcome and you feel comfortable. And I feel like the hobby in general, with especially with social media nowadays, it's kind of there's a lot of, I'm probably gonna like butcher, not say this word, anonymity,
Animosity.
like
Animosity.
well, animosity, but like there's a lot of people who are kind of like anonymous, like with
Ana-
people's social medias accounts.
Anomaly. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't like really tell. Like if they're a male, if they're a female, you can't really tell because a lot of people just have like cards or they have something else as their profile picture. So I
Yeah.
think that's kind of interesting within the hobby. It's just something that I've noticed. So just, I think that's one thing they could do though, is just like engage more. I think that's something that I wish I had done earlier was just reach out to other people. Maybe if we collected the same thing, or if I really liked a card that they got and I was asking them, how did you, work your way up to get to this card, just asking them different things. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I personally struggled with. And I think other women might struggle with that. And that could be an obstacle. It's just making that first leap to like, kind of putting yourself out there, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I can see it, being a little reserved, like you said, with the landscape being mostly male. But, as a dealer myself, I did my first show as a dealer at 15. And believe it or not, for where I am now at 48, I was a very shy kid. So I would just set up my showcases and I would sit there, and I'm going to be honest with you, I wasn't very personable. And it wasn't because I was trying to be rude. I was just so shy. And so it took someone saying, "Hey, can I see this?" or "I want that," for me to really. I learned to sort of perfect. I don't want to say perfect. It's not perfect. I learned to obviously get better with age and being more personable and how are you today? What are you looking for? Talk if they're wearing a jersey, maybe talk about their team or what's going on if the season's ongoing. But at 15, I was that shy kid that was just waiting for someone to call on me. And now as an older dealer, obviously it's night and day. And so whether it's a male or a female hobbyist that come over, I don't treat them any different. My banter is going to be the same. How are you? What do you collect? Is there anything in particular you're looking for? I don't change that. I think humans by nature can tell whether you're being sort of disingenuous or talking to them differently than maybe someone else. And I think it comes across that way. And that's just the way, Sam, I was raised to treat everybody fair and nice. And I think that helps. And then they will talk to you, and you establish some banter and some communication. And I think it's important. I think there's probably a segment of the hobby. What I'm not just saying, even in the dealer aspect, that maybe I don't want to say resents, but maybe doesn't appreciate that aspect of the hobby and maybe the way they should, or views them differently, which I don't agree with. But I'm sure, like in any genre, that's going to be the case. And it's unfortunate, and that's probably what leads into maybe being a little reserved is the actions of the few there that fit that description. And I just know it's not going to be me that does it, and I'm going to promote and try to be a voice of change. If someone is feeling that way, to show them that there's really no reason to, and I don't know where it comes from, but we all can enjoy this hobby as just one big hobby, regardless of race, creed, color, sex, whatever. It's not just a male or female thing. And I think it's important. This is a global hobby. I mean, this isn't just in the United States. It's overseas. It's almost everywhere, and no reason we all can't enjoy it just the same, without anyone having to feel ostracized or different or anything like that. I think we're making strides. I think your show is definitely a very important piece to that, even in the early going, and as you go along. I mean, kind of talk. What was it? What was the catalyst for getting the show, and kind of talk about how that all kind of got off the ground?
Yeah, definitely. So, and I will say, as you were mentioning, that is kind of, you said, you were a shyer kid. That's still me today. Like I'm 22, like I work full time, but I'm still like, whenever I go to shows, I get a little timid. I just kind of still working on that, still working on my show skills, definitely. But not only even set up, I just walk around and I'm still like, but it's just a lot sometimes to take in, just like all these cards, so many things, going through your mind. But yeah, I think a lot of that has to do with me personally, also just being a shyer person. But that's really, it kind of leads into why I created, Women of the Hobby, and what was the mindset behind it. And I think a lot of that was, I was looking for those hobby friends, and I knew like the guys, like I'm cool with guys. Like I've grown up a sports person. I've always been involved with, my dad's friends and whatnot. So like I definitely know how to, I guess, like hold my own or have my own conversation about, with guys or whatnot. But I was kind of just looking for a circle of like women, or just like meeting more women who were like me and had similar experiences. And I really just wanted to hear from them, how long have you been doing this? And just kind of get their perspective on what they thought about it and things like that. Just so I could feel, a little bit more included. As I mentioned, I kind of felt, sometimes I was just kind of like, oh, I don't know. I just kind of feel like, a little bit outside. But I wouldn't say it's really anything that like anyone did. Like no one really said anything to me. It was kind of just more in my head. I was like, I can tell I'm different. So, it was just a mental thing for me. But yeah, I think that was kind of the main motivation, was just to find another group of women that I could talk to about cards, just hear about their perspectives within the hobby, and just hear their stories as well.
Yeah, and I think you do a great job. I know you do your collector of the week. I think you do a great job getting the word out there that there's a lot of us. You don't have to, I hate to be dramatic, maybe, hide in the shadows or be sort of reserved, if you will. Like you can say, hey, I collect cards, and there's plenty of us here, and also you get to know each other. I mean, those that watch the show can then connect, and that circle obviously will grow and get bigger and more powerful, as it should. And I think whether that was your goal or kind of the, you know what I mean, the plan. I think it's that's the way it's been going, and I think it's great. I think it's important that fellow women of the hobby realize, like, hey, there's a lot more of us than we probably even thought about. It's just there's 50 states, and then there's countries, and we're all over the place, and it's important. With social media, it's made the world a smaller place. You can talk to somebody in 5 seconds that's halfway around the world, and it's made that community tighter, smaller, and more close knit. And I think that's important. That's any sex persuasion, male, female, the whole thing. But I think it's important, for the females of the hobby to know, like, there's plenty of it, and more every day entering the hobby arena. And I think it's important to get that word out there. And so, whether it's called that, it doesn't matter. Like I said, you've had male guests as well, so it's you're not being exclusionary on your own terms either. You're just saying, hey, let's talk about our perspective in the hobby, and maybe even problem solve. Hey, what do we need? What do we got to improve in this hobby as a whole, male, female, both of us, to make this hobby the best it can be for everybody. And I think that's always important. So kudos to that. And as far as, listen, when I first started, your chops will get better as you go. It's funny, I cringe when I listen to some early, we're on episode, this is 133, and when I listen to some of the early ones, it's not pretty. And to tell you the truth, I'd probably delete them, Sam, if they weren't sort of part of the history of the show. I would delete them. I just know, hey, where's episode 1 to 10? Like, what happened to them? Like, I accidentally hit delete. Like, other than being sort of part of the history and the archive and the fabric of the whole show, I sometimes do go back and listen to them, and man, I hide under my desk when I hear them. And the more you do anything, you get better at it. And as far as, like you saying, being nerves, I get them too. I still play competitive softball, and going in my 30th season, and I still, before games, probably played 1,000 games, and you still get that. I think it means you care, and you have a passion for it. And so it's when you don't get those little butterflies, I think you might have to worry a little bit, like you're just kind of going through the motions, and so nothing wrong with that. And you do a great job for my 2 cents worth. And you'll get better, even if you feel like you're not. You'll get much better as you go. So
yeah, thank you, I appreciate that. And I know sometimes with the videos, because obviously, like, I record it and whatnot, and then obviously I have to go back in and edit a few things, maybe if it's super long and we just kind of, drag on about something or whatnot. But yeah, sometimes I don't I don't enjoy listening back through it. I just kind of like hearing my own voice too. I'm like, oh no, like, what did I say? You just never know. But yeah, I think as it gets going, yeah, you become more comfortable. But I do agree. Like, I always say that as well. If you're not nervous, you really care about it. Like, so yeah, it's always good to have a little bit of nerves, because it shows you care. I agree.
Yeah, if it makes you feel better, and I've said this on the show before, people who've heard the show have heard me say, I'm not a fan of my voice. Like, hearing me on playback, I might have a face for radio. I'm not even sure I have a voice for radio, though. But so, I think we're all a little bit critical of ourselves too much, and you just got to have fun. I think if you're passionate and people see that, and you're having fun with what you're doing, that shines through, and that comes through more than anything else. Sure, there's some people that are going to look and just judge right off the bat, not be open-minded, but you can't worry about folks like that. You're not going to win they've already made their decision, so it's not open for discussion, and focus on those that are open-minded, care what you're talking about, care about the issues that you're bringing to the platform, and that's where your focus needs to be. So and you're doing great, so keep it up. Has the show changed, like, for what we see now to kind of where you thought? Have you sort of moved off? Have you changed much from the original intent at all?
Yeah, actually, so like my original intent, and I spoke on this a few days ago as well, but so like Women of the Hobby, it was more so a play on words of Humans of New York, which is like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but it's like an Instagram page, and I think it's even become like a book now, but it's essentially just telling the stories of random people on the streets of New York. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll just like tell the stories of women who collect cards. And so my main focus was just going to be interviewing women. But Hannah from She Collects Cards, she reached out to me, and we've connected. And so we kind of had the idea of just doing like a weekly show of not us interviewing well, sometimes we'll bring on different people, but more so just like talking about the weekly news just as we would, and just like filming it essentially. So that's been pretty fun. It's definitely made it more of a commitment, because when I was doing the interviews, it was maybe every 2 weeks, but now this weekly show, it's once a week. So I feel like,
I have no
the
idea what you're talking about. I'm just kidding.
exactly. There's so much going on. I don't want to say like, I think it adds an aspect, but at the same time, it takes away from your time that you were previously, researching cards, like just doing other card things. It's now consumed with making content and doing. It's still about cards, but it's different. So there's a different aspect to it as well. So I think that's definitely changed, and I don't want to say I underestimated the time commitment, but I think in the beginning, I maybe wasn't as efficient as, getting things set up, and it was taking me forever. But I think luckily now, as things have progressed and I've just made more videos, and I'm getting a little bit better at doing that, and it's not taking up so much of my time like it used to. But I've enjoyed it, though. That is the best thing, I think, is I've been happy doing it, and it makes me happy, so I enjoy doing it as well.
Yeah, and that's, Sam, that's the bottom line. And you're gonna figure out things as you go. Hey, I can do this. It'll save me a little time. I can be more efficient by doing this. It's like anything in life. The more you do something, the better at it you're gonna just naturally get. And you probably, I already call you a pro. You'll get even more pro level as you go. But you make a great point too. People who don't do content creation, I'm not trying to pat ourselves on the back, maybe a little bit. They don't realize like the work that, they might hear an hour, 2 hours of audio/video content and think that's it. But like you said, there's editing involved. You got to cut parts out. And so they may hear, let's say, an hour of content, but it was really 4 hours of work, of manpower, woman power that went into that, getting that final product out there. And, I don't know if you've gotten these questions yet. You will, or maybe you have already. I get asked all the time, like, John, any advice? I've been thinking about starting my own podcast. What would you, any advice to me? And I'm always very supportive, like, do it. If that's where your passion is, do it. But I'm also very honest in saying, while you may, as a fan of content, and you're here in that hour, be prepared to put in 2, 3, 4 hours to have that final product of an hour. So I think some people don't realize off the bat, like, the work that gets involved, and you got to find that work life, balance. And it is true, as being in the hobby, it does take away from some of the things you have, the time you have for, being on a selling platform and buying something you're looking for, or, and that sort of thing. So you have to figure out kind of what schedule you want to operate on. And at 22, I'm going to sound like your mom or dad here, but you want to enjoy life too. You don't want to, I think we're seeing too, maybe some of this is as a result of the pandemic. I think as great as the hobby is, and it's the greatest hobby in the world, as Dr. Beckett and me have said on the show multiple times, and I agree with him. It can consume you too if you let it. Like anything, it's not just reserved to, if someone's into cars and that's all they do all day is work on cars and talk about cars and sports cars. It can consume you, whatever your hobby is. So you got to sort of, I've done shows on my smaller show, which is Hobby Quick Hits, about, it can be addicting to a point where it's not healthy. And so you've got to balance it out. Sometimes it's easier said than done. I can, I've told the story. I've had dealer friends of mine who were just so much traveling with shows and whatnot, that they wound up being divorced and not seeing their kids as much. And so, those are some of the pratfalls of getting sort of, caught in the machine, I like to say. And so, you're very smart. I don't think that's going to be maybe a problem for yourself per se, but I think other people who are not, as focused could potentially get caught in that. There was a point even with me in this show, probably in the 50s and 60s, where it was getting very time consumption, where I hadn't really streamlined a lot of stuff, or wasn't as efficient with it, where my own wife said, John, you spent a lot of time on that. She was supportive, but just kind of hinting like, hey, we're still here, and it was a little bit of a wake up call. And so if it can, if it can happen, if I can get sort of close to that edge, it potentially can happen to anyone. And it just took, for me, I just had to, we have a whiteboard here, Sam, and I just, like this interview, it's on the whiteboard. Hey, I'm doing this at this time, and I'm doing this next week at this time. It's just communication, in my case, being married. I'm also fortunate, or my son's 21. He's a year younger than you. And so he's bops in and out. Sometimes I forget how old he is. And, if I had when he was younger, I probably couldn't do what I do now. He's sort of self-sufficient. And, but when he was younger, obviously playing sports and myself as even a coach, it wouldn't, I've always said this show has kind of replaced I coached varsity high school baseball and football. So this show, when that ended, when he graduated and I stepped down, this show's kind of replaced that schedule. So, but you sound like you've already sort of navigated some of those pratfalls, and you'll learn to do it even more so. And I do, I did as well. Sometimes it takes my wife just saying, hey, and just getting on the same page, in my case. And now we've had, once we got on that same page, it's been pretty smooth sailing. But I don't know if I've ever even kind of told that story. So there you go. But you'll figure it out, and you can always. There's always you just got to organize the time. It's just I make it sound simple, but it's not. I don't think it's as hard as some make it out to be, and I don't think it's as simple. It's somewhere in between. So the other, yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna say. I mean, yeah, I definitely agree. I think when I first got in, there was maybe a point in time where, yeah, I don't know, addicted is like a strong word, but maybe obsessed for a little bit. I feel like obsessed is a little temporary sometimes. So yeah, I was like all about, whether it was cards or just like the account, just making different things. And yeah, like I think my mom more so, I think she saw how much time I was spending on it, and she was just not worried, but just kind of like, okay, like you might just want to become more aware of how much time you're spending on this. And I think it was good to just kind of step back and realize, I can't just do this all day long. Like it's not sustainable and it's not healthy. So yeah, I think trying to find a balance is what I've been focused on more recently. And then I think in the future as well, just making sure it balances out with work and family, friends, just making it all work. As you said, it's probably not as easy as it sounds, but it's not too difficult. And I think it just takes time as well. So.
Yep, and I've talked about this, Sam. There's weekends I'll take off where I don't do anything hobby related, including show wise. And I'm not, and then not show wise, even cards. I won't even touch cards. I just take 2 days. And what I found when I do that, probably do that, probably every 4 to 5 weeks, I kind of have a no cards weekend, if you will, no content, no cards weekend. I find I appreciate it more, kind of being away. It's the old adage, right? You don't know what you have until you don't have it. So sort of taking like a self-imposed hiatus, you appreciate, hey, how much you enjoy it when you're not partaking in it. And I think, for me, that works. I tend to do that, it seems like, about every 4 to 5 weeks. And it's not nothing I schedule. It's just kind of, hey, this weekend I got no interviews. I'm not going to touch cards. I'm going to go on the deck with a beverage and a cigar or in a hot tub, and just we'll kind of reconvene Monday in the hobby again. And the times I've done that, it's kind of refreshing. Kind of you decompress, and then when you come back, you sort of reinvigorate. At least with me, I'm sort of reinvigorated and ready to sort of get back on the horse and get going again. And I think it's important if you need to do that. I was at a dinner with Dr. Bennett in Dallas, and one of the questions came up about that sort of burnout, in the hobby. And it's what I said is I'm not afraid to pause. I think in 3 years, we've had 3 Fridays where we haven't produced a show, but if there's a week where I just can't do it, I'll post something. Hey, no show Friday, going to take a break. We'll see you next Friday. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, as long as you communicate that and to people who kind of expect you to be there on Friday, like the newspaper on the doorstep, as long as you sort of add a, courtesy to them, kind of give them a heads up. Hey, no show this week. We'll see you next week, just the same. I think people appreciate that. People understand that. We all, have similar issues and different things. And so I think as long as you communicate that, you don't even have to get into specifics, maybe why, or I just need a break. And, I think people are appreciative of that. And so, and I don't think there's anything, that was my stances. I don't think there's anything wrong. If you need to take a week off in content creation, sort of to decompress, get your second wind, and come back and be ready to go, then we get vacations from jobs, right? So why not on the content creation side? So I think if you need be, I think that options, I always tell other in the conversations I've had, there's nothing wrong with taking a week off. I know we don't like to do it, and the 3 times I did it, I was kind of, felt sort of a little bit guilty, if you will, but at the same time, I knew it was important so that it can continue, and that we don't, you see a lot of shows sort of on the side of the road that, did 10 episodes, 15 episodes, and then that was it. Maybe some of that was they just, grinded too hard, where they just, burned out too quick, and you got to pace yourself. And, taking a break, I'll never tell someone to not take a break if that's what you need,
Yeah, I definitely agree. In fact, like, speaking of breaks, I'm going on vacation next week. So I'm pretty excited, and I like won't have an episode, but I'm definitely gonna probably not be on my phone as much, obviously, and just like we're going to some national parks, so I'm pretty excited. I haven't really been out west too much, so it should be good. But I think it's gonna be good because I'm thinking of like different things that I can do afterwards, but I'm definitely gonna like take a break and just be like, I just need to, relax a little bit. And then, I think it'll be good to come back. And I do think I will feel kind of rejuvenated and want to, do even more things when I come back, but, still at a steady pace, nothing too ramped up too much.
Yeah, you will. And as much fun as you'll probably have, you'll miss that. And then, like you said, when you come back, you'll appreciate, like, I love doing this show. I like my break and I like my vacation, but now I'm home and I'm ready to jump back in the director's chair here, and let's get going again. And nothing wrong with that. It's actually very healthy. So I'll say it ahead of time. Enjoy that time away too.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. We've seen, we're talking about, we've seen card art the last 2 years here, 2020, 2021 become big with the Tops Project 2020 and the Project 70. And some of those artists are obviously very talented and of the female persuasion. We have Sophia Chang, Lauren Taylor, Distorted. I may be missing someone. If I am, I apologize. I'm not doing it intentionally. How important do you think, even on the art side of the hobby, with the female artists, do you think that's helped? Maybe expose more females. Hey, maybe not even to just collecting cards, but hey, I'm an artist. I sort of like cards, and I can draw athletes. Maybe this is something I can do as a career. You think it helps in that regard?
Yeah, that's actually an interesting point. I haven't really like kind of thought about that myself, but I do like that, I think any more women that you can bring in, no matter the aspect, whether they be, they're just collecting, they're investing, they're making cards, or maybe they're, we mentioned before, like Sue's, she's part of Tops, or she previously was with Tops, and um, like working with actual card manufacturers. I think the more women you can have in that space, I think the better, just because I think you have diversity of thought too, just like how women think and men think. Obviously, I think we can agree that we think differently on some things. So it's just, I think it's great just to have more women involved. And I do think that could be another entry point for other women to get in, maybe through the artistry of the cards. Maybe they have somewhat of an affinity for sports in some capacity, but then maybe their true passion is the art and they really enjoy the art of those cards. So I do think that could be a different way for women to kind of come in and just appreciate the hobby for what it is as well. I like that point. I haven't really been asked that or thought about
Well,
that, but
it's public domain, so you're free to use it if you wanna give a shout out. I'm all about it. But no, it is true. It's something I thought about is being sort of a fan of those two things. I'm not buying everything, but if something strikes me that I like, and it's great to see that aspect of it, and some of the best work is coming from that side of the aisle, if you will. I don't want to say aisle. I don't think there is an aisle, but I just think it's great for someone of the younger. Hey, I can do this, and like you said, with Suze and Emily, basically the faces of Tops. With Emily coming in after Suze, I mean they're the speaking points of a major, probably arguably the greatest company in the industry. I think that's a very important point and aspect, and I think for a young girl to see that, hey, I can be a CEO, I can be a spokesman, I can be head of marketing or whatever title they want to hold, or whatever field they want to go in. Maybe they're more comfortable behind the scenes. I want to work there, but I want to design the 2025 Tops. I want to be part of that team. Well, whatever their heart desires. I think what it shows is that you can do anything you put your mind to, and that goes for males as well. But I think that. But when we see females doing those things on the art side, on the hobby side, as executives, and what you do even as collectors. Hey, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. And I think that's so important to highlight. I don't, someone else might say, well, I think it's important in many ways, because there's some that need that example, that might be on the sidelines, sort of like, I want to do it, I'm hesitant, and it might be your show or a guest on your show that says, hey, I'm doing it. And not apologizing for it, nor should I. And here we go. And just like what you did with starting the show, like, I'm going to do this, and you took that plunge. I think some folks need that. You're sort of more maybe self-motivated. Some other people maybe a little bit less, and they need that example in front of them to be that final sort of, push to do it. And when they get there, they can do anything they want to, and be whoever they want to be, collect whoever they want to collect, what they want to collect. And I think it's important. I think you do a great job of making that known and highlighting that. And I think it's so helpful, and it's very, very important.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I definitely really appreciate that, and I agree. I think even for myself, it took. I thought about the idea of like creating some type of just like platform or community for women to just be highlighted, and just like make people kind of aware of women in the hobby. And for me, like my biggest kind of push to actually, I kind of needed to push myself as well was seeing Hannah, her YouTube channel. For some reason, I hadn't seen it. She'd been doing it for a few months before I stumbled upon it, but I saw her YouTube channel. I said, if she's doing this, like, no, this is my push to go out there and do this as well. So yeah, I definitely agree. Like some people, they may be go getters, but other people they do need a little bit of a push, myself included. But and then yeah, also kind of going back on the kind of like the diversity of getting women in through different aspects. I mean, yeah, I just think if you can come in through all these different perspectives, the more perspectives you have, I feel like just the more educated you become. And I think that's another thing that I've learned through the hobby is I love learning more than I thought I did. I'm like a year removed from school and I'm used to learning. I'm used to having to learn because I was going to get tested. And now I'm realizing, no, I just kind of like to know things. So that's kind of neat to find out through the hobby as well.
Yeah, you're inquisitive, so, and that's important. That's important, and you're gonna learn. I've been doing this a long time, Sam, and I try to avoid, and I think I do a fairly good job. I don't like to say I know a lot. I say I think a lot. I know what I had for dinner yesterday. I know this pullover is white, but I don't know what the next month's going to bring the hobby. I might have an opinion or a thought process, and I think sometimes on the content creation end, we have a lot of people saying I know and really putting themselves out there. When you nothing wrong with it, that we're all entitled to our opinion and how we want to portray that. But when you do the I knows and then that doesn't happen, have a lot of people letting you know that, hey, what you said, not true. You were wrong. And so, and I just don't, I think, there's a lot, let's, be honest with you. We have a lot of people that are very influenced. And so I don't really, I get asked all the time, hey, what do you think? What's going to happen here? What do you think? We're in a market correction. How long does this last? Where's it going? What's next? And all I can give is my opinion. I don't know. When this pandemic first kind of broke, I was on this show and I was wrong because I said, I think what's going to happen is the hobby's going to struggle while people are going to be worried more about, paying their bills, putting food on the table, having water, toilet paper, they're keeping their jobs, maintaining employment. Cards are going to sort of take a back seat. And as we both know here, a year and a half later, way wrong, swing and a miss, right? I mean, like got a curveball when I was looking fastball, and I'm glad to be wrong. It was arguably probably the best, 1.5 years in hobby history. There's a lot of reasons for that. We've both talked about that on our respective shows, and but I use that to point out that there's someone who's been in the hobby 30 something years at that point. And I was wrong. You don't, so I try to avoid the I knows and do the I thinks. And sometimes those I thinks, as I was in March of 2020, are don't come to fruition. And, now we're seeing sort of a little market correction, if you will. But as things sort of go back to normal, some of that discretionary income is not there, and other people start to get out and enjoy the things that were closed for so long. And I think the hobbies is feeling. I think we're seeing now a little bit of what I sort of predicted then. I think it's just it was a 1.5 year delay, and the hobby's still great. It's still strong. It's you're looking at auctions breaking all sorts of records still, and there's a lot of transactions still occurring. It just I think that boom where stuff just goes up 800% is not going to be there. Some things maybe, but not just almost across the board like it was just firing on all cylinders. And can still enjoy the hobby. Doesn't mean anything's in trouble. Just things can't always go up all the time. That's not how it works, whether it's the stock market or bonds or yield. I mean, it's just it comes with the territory. And so, we'll have to make adjustments and still enjoy the hobby.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I think, I would say I didn't really get back into the hobby until kind of amid the boom, amid the bust. But if I had been in it, pre-COVID, I think I would have shared the same thought. Obviously, like,
Yeah.
as you're saying, I wouldn't have known, but I probably would have thought something similar in the fact that, COVID would have been very hard for people to have, expendable like income that they can just use discretionary money for whatnot, like things like cards. So I probably would have thought the same thing. But I do agree, even though the hobby right now, it is taking a little bit of I guess a downturn. I think it's still strong as well. And I would say like I think the hobby beforehand, when it was so unpredictable with the boom and just like crazy boom, it almost felt like fantasy land to me. Like I'm not sure that I was a little scared of it, honestly, because it's like that's a little insane. If it can go up that much, it can go down that much in the same amount of time, if
Yep.
not faster. So that was a little scary to me to see that, and I would honestly say I feel a little bit more comfortable now that things are like settled down a little bit, just because I feel more safe and like the prices of things are not just gonna rise drastically, and hopefully that means they're not gonna fall drastically either anymore. It's not as volatile, I guess, is really the word.
Yep.
But yeah, I agree. I think it's still very strong, and I think it is just continuing to bring in more people. Some people they've left because of they just came in for a quick bit, something to do over COVID or something. But I do think some people stayed, and they are trying to bring more people in as well.
Yep, and I think this little downturn, market correction, whatever terminology we want to use, I think there's a healthy aspect to it too, where things can be more affordable for those that were sort of getting frustrated and sort of priced out, and for those when the hobby was booming, it was just real easy. You didn't have to be super smart to sort of just buy something and sell something, and now I think you're going to have to do a little bit more homework. I don't think it's just going to be that easy, quick, get in, do this, and I think you're going to see people have to work a little bit more if that's their angle, if that's what they enjoy doing. It's not going to be as easy, and they're going to have to sort of earn it a little bit more, if you will. And I think that's not wrong with that. I think that's healthy and good for the hobby, and we'll lose a few people and we'll gain a few more too. It's a constant in and out, and it's always been like that. It has nothing to do with the recent boom or the correction maybe we're seeing now. There's always like anything in life, any hobby, you have some new people come in, you have some people who don't enjoy it anymore and decide not to do it, and that comes with the territory. So I got to ask you, we got the national coming up here in about 4 or 5 weeks. Are you going?
Yes, I'm going, and I'm really excited. I've never been to a national. I'm going Friday through Sunday. So hopefully I still get to do some things. I think I've heard of a few people doing things on Thursday, which is unfortunate because I won't be there till Friday. But yeah, I'm still excited. And yeah, I feel like my main excitement is probably just stemming from meeting people. I'm not really sure
Yeah.
that I have any like card strategies going into it. Really, just pick up some cards that I like. Nothing too crazy, but yeah, I'm excited to just go in and meet these people that you've seen for the past year, whether it be other content creators or just people that you've been talking with. So I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, you're gonna have to. As someone who's this will be my second one. My first, believe it or not, for as long as I've been in the hobby, 2019 in Chicago was my first one, and I went there for 4 days or 3 days. This one I'm going for the full week, Wednesday to Sunday. Whatever you think it is, it's going to be a grander scale. It really is, and not just one word of advice, and some of the most fun you're going to have is meeting those folks you say that enjoy women in the hobby, that want to come up to you and talk to you, and meet you in person. You're going to have to take, honestly, you're going to probably have to take, designate one day out of your three, really for that. I mean, it's going to happen all 3 days, but if you really, what I tried to do in 2019 is sort of one day was just not even really so much look at showcases and what's in it. One day I just, met people, did photos and all that, selfie, goofy, funny stuff, have conversations. Then another day, I did some on-site interviews as well, which I'll do this time as well. I sort of pick a day where I just want to focus on that. And then you got to leave. It's so big, you got to leave time. If you want to see everything, you want to leave time for that. And it's, I'll say this, Sam, too. If it's not there, it probably doesn't exist. It's almost like, we go to Hall of Fames, right? Like baseball. I'm not far here from Cooperstown, and just some of the crazy stuff that's in that building. For the National, it's like that for cards. I mean, there's you're going to see the owner's Wagner. You're going to see 52 Topps packs unopened, and you want to see that stuff, and so you want to make sure you leave enough time so you hit all those tables and booths and displays and kiosks, and so you don't miss nothing. And it's funny, I went to, I think, the 3.5 days in 2019, and then hearing other people talk like, I didn't see that, I missed that. And so I'm going the full week this time, and but you sort of have to have half a game plan. You don't want to game plan too much where it's you don't have fun with it either, but you sort of have to kind of go in like I said, one day for me was just talking to people and sort of no itinerary other than meeting people, and then one day was on-site interviews, and then the rest of the time was, hey, let's check out all this crazy amazing stuff that you don't see all the time, especially locally. And so as long as you sort of kind of map that out maybe a little bit ahead of time, and people say, hey, you got to have deep dish in Chicago, you got to have deep dish pizza, so you got to make room for schedule that, and it's going to be, you're going to have a great time, and you'll be going to every year, and once you go to one, you get kind of hooked, and it's just a great, we already know the hobby's great. I think the National just does a great job at highlighting that for a week. I call it the Super Bowl of the hobby, and that's kind of really how I view it. And it's going to be fun. I look forward to being one of those people you meet in person. You inspire me, Sam. I'll say that publicly. And on the air, you really do. I enjoy your show and what you're doing for all the hobby, not just one segment specifically, but just the hobby in general. And I think it's awesome. Keep doing it. Thank you for coming on. I want to give you sort of the final word here. Give out where people can see what you're doing, women of hobby, if they haven't saw the show, where they can catch it and all that good stuff.
Yeah, thank you. Definitely keep those tips in mind for the National. But I just want to say thank you again for having me on. It's been amazing just getting to hear some of your perspectives, and I'm excited to have you be one of the people that I meet in person in the National. But in terms of the other platforms that you can find me on, so I have my Instagram, so it's Sams_stuff25. It's more of like my own personal card Instagram. Then I have Women of the Hobby Instagram, and then within YouTube, I also have Women of the Hobby YouTube channel, and it also streams on Spotify and Apple And I think a few other places that honestly I'd never even heard of, but those are probably the mainstream ones. I just put it on one thing, and I think it distributes it to multiple platforms. So just search "Women of the Hobby," and you'll be likely to find it. And yeah, thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for coming on, and keep doing what you're doing. I think it's important. You do a great job, and I look forward to seeing future episodes, and as the show grows, and as you do, and as you're doing great now, and I know it's going to be even better in the future. So continued success.
Thank you.
You're welcome.